Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Women Who Rock with Success, which is an award-winning show for professional women. We profile a collective of amazing women who are thriving to build their brand. Women are handpicked in various fields who can provide credible information to build your business and lifestyle. We are live each Thursday at 9 a.m. Central Time, followed by our latest brand, Women Who Rock Investigates. To learn more about us, go to our website at www.womenwhorockwithsuccess.com. Now, let's join our podcast host in the studio, Mrs. Diane Winbush.
And good morning, and welcome to our third segment today of Women Who Rock with Success, and we thank you for tuning in with us once again. And, of course, we continue to feature women for, and yes, we have author and writer Jessie Broadt in the studio with us. Good morning, and welcome to the show.
Hi there. It's Jessie Broadt.
Broadt. Okay, Broadt. I'm sorry about that. Okay. And
no,
so, good
don't
morning.
blame me. My husband did it to me.
Okay, we're going to have to delete all of this. Okay. But anyway,
I'm sorry.
That's so comical and funny. No, that's okay. That's okay. I love a good laugh. Okay. So, first of all, we want to, as I already went and explained to the audience, this is Women's Month. And, of course, we love to feature women that are exuberant in their careers, in their brands, their products and services, what they have to offer for the public. So I've already introduced you, and, of course, we're going to cut some of this as well. But anyway, we can go back in and re-edit everything. So what I wanted you to do first is kind of share with the audience a little bit about you. This is your second time on our show, but, you know, some things have updated since then. So tell the audience a little bit about you.
Well, I'm really excited to be back on the show again. I remember having so much fun on your program before when I had just published my book, Hot Winter Sun. And now things have definitely changed. I'm with a new publisher, and we have all kinds of stuff in the mix to really get it out there and make it successful. And I'm just so grateful that you can start out so small, and then those next steps start to come, and you realize, hey, this could end up being a whole new career. And I do write web content for a living. That's my profession for, let's just say, forever. But now I'm seeing maybe one day I'll be writing novels for a living. Who knows?
Absolutely, because I think that's what I perhaps maybe included on one of your descriptions, because I love novels. I really do. So that's really going to make me get up and go to the library now after this show, perhaps, and after we wrap everything up in the studio, is to go get me a novel book. I love the Clark, the mother and daughter, Mary Higgins Clark. So I love that. So
great mysteries.
Great. So,
great
yes,
mysteries.
Exactly. They are so great, and I love Agatha Christie. I just love ancient, I guess, if I could be able to use that word, those classical type of authors who really, really actually brought it out and paved the way for modern day authors. And so I love them. I really do. So kind of share with us a little bit, what kind of compelled you to get into the writing industry? You know, a lot of people, they ghost write and they do novels, and as we already talked about and discussed. So what kind of compelled you to get into this line of work?
Well, I've always been like an avid reader. I just devour books. I probably read 5 years or 6 years ahead of my age from, I guess, according to my mother, the time I was born. And I guess writing is kind of always something I was doing even when I was in other lines of work. I was a professional gospel singer at one time, but writing was always just there. I did it even when I didn't have any place to sell it to or any place to publish it. I wrote stuff anyway. And then when, the great invention of the Internet came along, I saw a career path there because so many websites, that's one thing that you can never have enough of is content for your website. And so I got into that and just found a niche in travel, which was obviously a little disruptive the last few years. But, that was just like a passion, and traveling is one of my passions. That's kind of why I picked that. But then I loved, just mysteries, and I thought one day I have to come up with a good mystery, because I just loved like the old, like you mentioned, some of the writers you mentioned. I absolutely adore Victoria Holt, who wrote great historical fiction, and that's what I decided finally to write. Like I want to dig in and get, because I love history, I want to dig in and get all that history, make this awesome backdrop of how it really was, in that century, which for my book is the 1600s. And then put, the mystery and the romance in it too, and just give somebody really something to chew on instead of, fluff. That was really kind of my goal when I set out to write a novel.
Okay. Go ahead. You can finish.
Oh, okay. No, I just, it felt good to finally have like once I got started with web content, it felt great to, have like an outlet to do all the travel writing. And a lot of times they'd, ask me for articles. It was like, oh, I've been in that place, and I that fulfilled like one kind of thing that I always had going on the inside. And then writing the novel kind of made that come true too, because I always wanted to sit down and actually write a story, not just content for a website or like a travelogue, but something that's really creative. And the story just kind of wrote itself. I had a basic idea, but I guess when it's what you're born to do, the characters just don't leave you alone. And that's kind of how it happens. They just started to take on a life of their own, and the book actually took some twists with regard to the mystery that, you're going to think I'm crazy now, but that I didn't see coming myself.
Okay.
Certain parts I would get to, and I think, wait a minute, what? What's she doing? Why's she doing that? But I guess, in a way, you can't be a tyrant with your characters. Maybe they have a better idea than you have.
You are so comical. And that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. It is something it is an experience and a joy also to be able to see a fictional character come to life through a writer, and that's what I really, really love. I really, really love that. So for the audience, also kind of share. So I'm going to give you like a little scenario of one of my pet peeves. Okay, so when I first open up a book, a lot of times we don't read the preface or something like that. So I love to get pulled in the first two paragraphs. So share with us a little bit how important that is to be able to hook the audience in the first paragraph, because like I stated, with Mary Higgins Clark and her daughter, or I may be saying it wrong, Mary Higgins Clark may be the daughter, but anyways, when I read their stories and their novels, they're just so catching. They're so heart-catching. And so if I don't get anything from the author in the first paragraph, I put the book down. And so these women have always been able to draw me in. So for those that are listening or that will be listening also in the future to this show, share with an author that perhaps may be listening as to the importance of drawing in your readers on the first paragraph, the first sentence, on a wet summer day or something like that. Oh, I just love it, and that just draws me in. That everybody else can go somewhere and hide for probably about 23 years, because once that first hook gets me in, I'm hooked on the book.
Yeah, because sure, you want to know what happens. And that, what you mentioned there is getting more and more important all the time, because people have, we're in a really fast society now, and they want they want everything quick. So you can't, I mean, there's writers who do real long build-ups, and if you're that kind of mind and you can stick with it, I get that. But most people, they want right away to know what's going on here. What am I looking out for? What am I anticipating? What's going to happen? How is it going to happen? Who is this person? Why are they doing what they're doing? And it is a lot to cram into the first page without overdoing it, because that's the balance that's difficult, because you don't want to make it so, striking that you used up all your whole arsenal in the first paragraph, and then it lags because you used all your exciting stuff up in 2 sentences. So you really have to figure out a way to make it extremely interesting so that the reader wants to come along with you, but just kind of like dropping crumbs. You want it to be enough to keep them in there, and they really want to know what happens, but not that you're giving so much away that they figure it out, especially when it's a mystery. If they figure it out in the first chapter, they're not going to read the rest of the book. But that is extremely important to hook people in from the beginning. I started my book actually with the heroine's, the death of her mother, and she's about to marry into this rich household, doesn't know how the family's going to react because that just wasn't done in 1600s England. Peasant girls did not marry, estate lords, and that's what's about to happen. Then the crisis of her mother just died and her father's abusive. So I threw a bunch of different things in there. Her fiance is off somewhere traveling. Her mother's dead. She's stuck with her abusive father. And then when he comes back, she's about to marry into this rich household who she's thinking are all going to reject her. So that's right away I'm trying to give people, here's this going to happen. How's that going to happen? And then they want to know. And once you make people, you get people into a frame of mind where they want to know what's going to happen, as long as you write it properly from then on, they'll stick with you till the end. It's all about making them want more. Just like when you're watching a movie. How many times do you stop watching a movie and nothing's happened? Nobody has time for that these days. But, that's vitally important. Vitally important.
Okay, great. So one of your books, you have a book entitled, and I think we perhaps maybe have talked about this on the previous show, and we want to be able to refresh our audience, and for new listeners that have came onto the broadcast, share with the listeners some of the takeaways. We don't have to talk about the whole nuggets because, as you stated, it won't have any interest or appeal to it if we share everything about, the contents of the book. So Hot Winter Sun. So let's talk about that a little bit and some of the takeaways that you would love for a reader to grasp from your introduction.
Yeah, well, that's the name. That's correct. Hot Winter Sun. It was re-released. Actually, this is pretty cool, on Valentine's Day with Virtue Publishing, and I thought that was awesome when they swung that date for me, because what better day for a book launch? But yeah, it's a mystery romance with a lot of history in it. So it's set during actually the English Civil War. I don't know, I've probably said this 100 times. Don't ever do that to yourself. It's very hard, the topic to research. Oh, Lord. Anyway, no. But, yeah, it's a woman she's young, and back then, it was normal to get married younger. So she's 19, and her mother dies, and she's fallen in love with this one of two twins. And, they're on the verge of getting married, but then later is a lot of tragedy. And she ends up really on the outs with her husband's twin, who she later has to kind of throw herself on his mercy. So the way I wrote the characters, nobody kind of can figure out where that's going to go because he's extremely unpredictable. And so when this tragedy happens and she takes off, she kind of ends up having to make a U-turn, go kind of right back and face her nemesis. And it's kind of, I don't know, it was described by another writer who I adore. Her name's Rosa Gaston. And she described it as an unusual romance. I thought, well, that's a good thing. I was like, I hope she means that in a good, no, she definitely meant it in a good way. She enjoyed it. But I kind of wrote it in an unusual way because I just didn't want to do the same old. A lot of what they call historical romance is just, I hate to say it, but it's historical sex. It's just 50 million sex scenes and very little plot. But I tried to make it, different, where it's not the typical romantic lines you would expect, not the typical type of conflict that you would expect, but something that, really makes you think. And I think that was my ultimate goal with the characters, is to maybe make us think about why people do what they do and what motivates them to do what they do. And then maybe, just maybe, we figure out a little bit about ourselves and why we do what we do. But the primary theme that it's kind of a devil's in the detail book, but the primary theme is, maybe theme isn't the right word, but the kind of what's threaded in all the way through is that nothing is exactly what it seems like. Right down to, of course, who the culprit is. Of course you don't want people to see that coming. But there's even other characters in it that just kind of, they appear one way and then that's kind of not how they are at all. And in other characters, maybe they look like a good guy, but then it's like, oh, they have this other side. Is that a good side or a bad side they're coming out? Instead of just like cut and dry, like here's the mean person, here's the fun person, here's the happy person, here's the quiet person. I just kind of made them more multidimensional so that you really have to keep reading to figure out who they are. And I think it's a great way sometimes for us to figure out who we are, why we do what we do. So I hope it came across that way. It seems like it did, but cross our fingers.
Okay, and that's interesting because that is more like Dateline calls it like a twist in the plot. So I like that. I like that, a twist in the plot where your mind is going one way and you're like, oh, no. That's not who you thought she was. She's the one that actually did this, and she was the one that was actually over behind the, I don't know, fireplace or what have you with the poker stick trying to hit her husband, but everyone thought it was the, perhaps maybe the handmaid or the cook that's in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden it's the wife. We'll flip side that. We'll say everybody thought that it was the wife, but it was the handmaid in the kitchen, and so that would really stun the audience and the reader. Wait a minute, the cook is supposed to be someone that is very humble. She's trying to make a paycheck, and she'll do whatever she can to be able to serve. And so that would be a lovely twist if when they. When the author puts it that way, where it's someone least expected, someone they wouldn't even think about they would do it, and then here it comes. This is the one that really actually done it, and that really just keeps you coming back more and more, to that author and to whatever they have to offer in their scene plays. And so I think that is very, very enriching. And so share with us also, for those who may not know what a travel writer is, and I think I may know what it is, but I want you to be able to share it with the audience so they'll know what a travel writer is.
Well, most travel companies these days obviously they operate online, so they constantly need content, which the goal of the content is to, of course, pull traffic to the site, because if nobody knows you're there, you can be offering the greatest deal on the planet, but if they don't find you, they're not going to book through you. So it's usually one of two things. It's usually what we call in the world of web content writing, sales copy or editorial. Editorial is just kind of, they might say, just want a nice editorial about Costa Rica or about Ireland or wherever they happen to be booking packages to. And then they kind of take care of the ads part with banners and different things to click on. And then others will ask you, write something that, to put it in a nutshell, it kind of ends with book now before they're all gone, that kind of thing, like to create some urgency and get people to book packages. But usually it's centered around, when it's web content, it's usually centered around getting people to book through that particular vendor, their vacation or their business trip or their wedding or, whatever they've got in mind. And then every now and then, though, I do get clients that want information like for an actual travel log that they're going to put into a hard copy book that you literally like stick in your suitcase and take with you. Those kinds are a lot of fun. But yeah, travel, I do other types of web content, but travel is definitely my passion and it's fun. And the whole goal with that, a lot easier than novel writing, that's for sure, is just to kind of put the person in that place. If it's about Spain, you want them to kind of be in Spain in their head. If it's about Florida, you want them to be feeling the warm air and hearing the palm trees swish around, So it gets easier, as you go along doing it, because you just get used to how it's supposed to feel. And I'll read articles back sometimes, say, I don't know, I think I can put a little more punch in there. Some I read, it's like, yeah, that would make me want to go. That's usually my litmus test. If it would make me want to go, then I figure, yeah, it's good enough to send to the client, and we'll see what they say. But that's been a fun career too. I kind of love both. I love writing novels and creative work, and I love my web content, gigs too. It's just a great field to be in. I'm so fortunate to have lasted so long in it, going on about 18 years now. So I guess it's safe to say I've reached some success with it.
Absolutely. Different authors have different strategies as to how they write and how they do their storytelling and how they do their scene play. So take, for example, we, I think, had an author on the show back 2018, I want to say. And so, and I want you to be able to give us your input on this about what I'm going to say. So he feels that that an author should be traveling to the place to be able to get a better feeling for their audience, as to put them in the scene of where the screenplay is, where the story plot is, as well as where the author is themselves. Because another example would be, I love Dateline. That's a mystery, crime drama or something like that. I'm not for sure actually how they relate to their name, but it's Dateline. It comes on like every Friday, and so they'll start out with sharing with the viewers, the town of where the crime happened.
Yeah.
And then they'll have the cool breeze waters, rustling and what have you. And so that's something that we would like for you to be able to share also with the readers, because as I stated, you may or may not perform this when you get ready to write a book, but this is what another author had shared on our show back, I think it was like 2018, what the benefits of how the author, what the author could get out of it, as well as the reader when they travel, because I know that every time you write a novel, you're not traveling to England. I hope not anyway. But but anyway, share with us a little bit even about that, of your experience of perhaps maybe you may know another author that perhaps maybe traveled, to other countries, other states, other cities, in order to get a full synopsis of the area and the locations to be able to pitch your setting in your stories.
Oh, definitely. That is always a home run if you can do that. I mean, now I do, web content. I haven't always gone to the places that I've written about, but when a client actually sends me to a location, I consider that's an ace in the hole, because I don't know, it's just so much easier when you're sitting right there. It eliminates so much of what we call like web research. If it's a place I've never been, I do a lot of research to make sure I'm getting it right, just like I did with my novel. Actually, one woman who read it, her husband was a history professor, and the whole time she was reading the book, she kept calling over and, hey, did this not really happen this way? And I was elated because she came back to me and said he told me every single thing was spot on. And I knew it was, but it's just when you do that much research and then you hear that someone actually checked it out to make sure you did it right and they know that you did that felt great. And it feels that way with the travel writing too, because when a client actually sends me to the location, I just know that no matter how good I could have done without that, it's going to be that much better when you actually go and you're sitting there yourself and you're feeling it and experiencing it. There's just no comparison. So I would have to agree with that other author that, yes, definitely, that is always in your best interest if you can do that, or if you have clients willing to send you, that's definitely a good idea.
Okay, great. Okay. So now we want to talk about the real meat and potatoes, and that's your latest book that you have released, and I want you to, of course, share that with the audience and where, I guess some of the couple of takeaways, I would say, of that book and what you would like for the audience to be able to retrieve from it.
Well, the one that has been, it's actually Hot Winter Sun that's been re-released. So that's actually the same book, that was out before, but it's like with a new publisher, with Virtue Publishing. And I do have a sequel written, though, so now I have to say, any publisher would be crazy to take the sequel before they see how the first one's going to do. So we're just out, about a month and a half out here from Hot Winter Sun. So, but hopefully, like the goal is, if Hot Winter Sun does well, then it is in the contract that they, have first rights to the sequel. So, and of course it's going to do wonderful. But the sequel is actually called Cold Summer Wind. And what I did here with this series, just in a real quick nutshell, is Cold Summer Wind is actually the heroine in Hot Winter Sun is Catherine, and this is going to be her daughter Julia. So it's like the next generation. And then hopefully if the series does well, I will continue to write all, as many as come, right on down through the centuries, with each generation having a heroine from that generation, and I'm just excited to see what happens with that, because actually the third one kind of started to write itself already. I was sitting there like, no, we're not ready for this yet. We're not even up to the sequel being published. But sometimes they just keep writing on their own. You have to just deal with it. Your fans are going to think I'm a crazy person.
No, you're not. You're not, because sometimes when you have completed one task, completed one assignment, completed one book, or completed whatever it is, then something all of a sudden it goes to bubble in your stomach, and you're like, okay, here's something. Okay, so take for instance the novel series that was written by Jeanette Oak, if I'm pronouncing her name right, and it starts out with Love Comes Softly, and then after
course, good series.
It is so beautiful. And then, perhaps this can be an option for you later on. You can put those books on the television, because that's what she did. Someone went in there and bought that content. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened. I don't know. I'm not an author. But
they made great programs, didn't they? Made great movies.
It does. And
I think if it's a strong enough, I think any book that's strong enough can be a film. If it's you get someone who does it properly, because they came out great. But then again, she wrote a great book too. But I'd love that. That's a wild dream.
And then she could, and so what made me think of her was when you just made the statement earlier in regards to, sometimes, I think it was with this one here, hot, with the hot sun, and then here's the cold sun, and then it was the mother at first, and then here's the daughter, and I think that's the series that, the sequence that she has it also in her novels. I think it started out with the woman that, she lost her husband and everything just came crushing, and then here comes this other man comes out of nowhere, and he wants a mother for his daughter, and then all of a sudden they fall in love, and then the next installment that they come out with, it's the daughter has became grown. And so then after that, then it just continues to boil over. I think they have more children, and I just love it when it's like that. And so
it's an interesting way to write a series, or an interesting idea for a series. Where it's the next generation, because and plus you get to write about all these different times in history. Because obviously in Cold Summer Wind, it's not going to be the English Civil War going on, but it's the Popish plot and all these other different things that were happening there. So you always have like this great new history to write about, which you can tell I love. But it's a neat way to do a series.
Right, and so that's going to be the next question. I'm not for sure if you've already answered this or not. We've just been kind of galloping along in this adventure on the interview, but kind of tell us the reason why you kind of selected that. That's, a lot of times individuals have they write off the new millennium. Some people write off because I love Jeanette Oak's series. This is back. I think hers is back in the 1800s as well. They got the bonnets on their head. I think Teresa Russell played in there with them as well, and they had the bonnets on their head in their series. So tell us a little bit, what inspired you to be able to go all the way back to the Civil War times in order to create that dialogue for your readers?
I just thought, when I was trying to think of an interesting backdrop, I was thinking originally about like this early 1500s, but that right then that was when they were doing like so much on the Tudors, and it just seemed like it was kind of getting, and then the other Boleyn Girl, and all those, and I thought, it's kind of getting played to death now, and the last thing you want to do is put something out when it's a subject that everybody's starting to get bored with, And I just thought, well, what else is a really, really interesting time to start a series with a bang? And I thought, well, the English Civil War has it all. It's like political persecution, religious persecution, all the conflict that was going on, and you have to do it my way. No, you have to do it my way. And it's just, the king that just couldn't see every wrong step he was taking, and he's actually like leading himself to his own doom, and he can't be talked out of it because of his pride, and just so much going on with that. I thought you could do so much with characters. That's ultimately why I thought, okay, I'm going to make her from a Puritan home and him from a Royalist home and see how that's going to go. It just seemed like there was an endless supply of, extra things to work with to build the history into it. And I thought it might make it easier actually. Wow, when you get into the research. Why did I do this to myself? But I don't regret it because it did just make it so rich in history and so interesting. But that was probably why, just because there were so many different things that were dramatic going on in that time period.
Okay. That's fair enough. Because I've learned to grow into Western and to I guess I don't know if it's way back in the Civil War time, but I know I love Westerns. I love Clint Eastwood and his movies and what have you. And so it's just kind of
it's
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to learn as to why the author pitches their audience in certain time zones, time frames of the century that we live in. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So I kind of thought about that. I said, Jessie is not an old person, so that would be a great question to ask her as to why she would go way back to the but she's not an old person, so let's see what is her actual takeaway from the Civil War, from these women with these long dresses on. Let's see what's going on here. So I think that is so wonderful where we can continue to recapture the things that, and perhaps I'm sure that there are going to be writers such as yourself that is going to be able to recapture some scenes even while, the world has experienced through the coronavirus and, of course, this Ukrainian war. I'm pretty sure that's going to be on a lot of writers' table here, perhaps maybe sooner or later in the future, as to all of the elements and compounds that they could gather as to what was going on around that time. And like I said, you could beat them to the punch since we were talking about it today. But anyway.
Yeah. That's true.
You could beat them. You could beat them to the punch. Yeah, because this
you always want to be ahead of the curve.
It'll have so much content in there, as to all of the types of cultures that were affected, even by so much of the pandemic, and how the women were able had to, the business women, the corporate American women had to go to the house. They couldn't do it at the 9-to-5 office, and so it would be good to see an author to depict that. We had an author last week on the show. Just to make a long story short, and so she somehow worked herself from the author, and then now she's the president of the publishing company. And so we were sharing some ideas, and I said, what would it be like if, I think one of her titles of her book was The 7 Ways to something and things, and I said, well, what about the 7 ways after the pandemic? What about that? How would that impact the readers, and how many people would be compelled to read? Because, see, people are really looking for answers. They are looking for answers, whether it's fictional or non-fictional. They're looking for things, and I'm pretty sure around this time people have changed a lot of ways of how they're doing things, even on jobs. In our area, we have an individual that was on the media, and so what she did was she said, since I've been an anchor woman for 15, 20 years, this pandemic has changed some things around, and so she's changing her career. So I just feel that people are looking for a really good book, Jessie. I really do.
I'm
book.
With you. I think you're dead on with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, even from some of the scenes that we have gone through and experienced during all of the things here. I think they'll be looking for that. So with the last question, of course, we want the audience and the listeners to be able to find your book and your contents and your information, which you would like to share, and also your website if you want them to follow you after the show. You can be able to do that at this time, also with your social media handles.
Sure. My social media, Facebook, I'm just Jessie Broadt 99. And then I also have one that's at Hot Winter Sun on Facebook. And on Twitter, I'm Meliora13, Mellyora. And, of course, LinkedIn, I'm just by my own name.
Okay, great. We have enjoyed you today.
Oh, Instagram. I'm sorry. Instagram is Jessie Broadt 99. I'm sorry. I knew I was forgetting one in the back of my mind there. Oh, I'm a 14-carat screw-up.
Okay, you okay. And this segment was so wonderful today. I enjoyed talking to you and speaking with you, and hopefully that you can be able to come back onto the show in the latter part of the year so we can be able to see how you're doing and how the book is going and what have you. And hopefully you, as the listeners, will go out and purchase these books. They're on Amazon. I just saw the one with the sun. I saw that one. And so you can go and get the other one, too. She's giving you all of the information where you can be able to connect and network with her through her journey as a writer and a web content travel writer. So once again, Jessie, thank you so much for being with us today. I've had fun with you this morning, okay?
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Everyone have a great day and see us back here on next Tuesday at 9 o'clock a.m.